Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. I have our friend Anthony or PyScale with me today, and he's going to give us the latest updates in Ethereum Classic land. So welcome, as always, Anthony.
Hey, Christian. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Happy to be on.
Yeah. So, all right. So fill us in. So what is the latest happenings in Ethereum Classic and related technologies that we should know about?
Yes. So I guess first I should mention that I'm actually leaving the ETC Cooperative, where I've worked at full-time for the past year, dedicated towards ETC. I'm leaving it in good hands to Bob Somerville and Yaz Corey, who are going to handle a lot of the things I did and, further expand ETC and reach out to developers and all the great stuff we've been doing. But yeah, just figured I'd give that update. I'm not leaving ETC itself. I love ETC. The ETC Cooperative, I think, is an absolutely great place. It's just the job itself became something that wasn't for me, and I wrote down some of my thoughts on it, but a lot of it's related just to social media and being worn out, because I've done this for about 3 years, and I just couldn't do this particular job anymore. I kind of lost the thick skin that I used to have.
Sure.
And
understandable.
But
well, let's quickly add that you're going to continue to give us these updates. So I'm thankful. I'm sure other people are thankful for that as well. So that's you're not leaving ETC, just this specific job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Bob Somerville, formerly of the Ethereum Foundation, so obviously a subject matter expert on the technology. Is it Cody or Corey? I always forget.
Cody?
Cody Burns? Is that who's you're referring to?
Oh, for what? Bob Somerville.
Bob Somerville, and there was another name you mentioned.
Yaz Corey.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yaz Corey. Okay. Yeah, so good.
But back to ETC stuff. So from the ETC co-op, we are updating our public RPC node, Ethereum Classic.network. Yaz is in the final stages of getting that set up so we can roll it out. It'll just be a much more reliable public RPC node, so that developers who want to query ETC without running their own full nodes can. Obviously, I suggest that everybody run their own full node, but it seems sometimes people don't want to. So, yeah, just happy to have that.
So for people that are developing and they just need to test their code, right?
Yeah, or people who want to do transactions on ETC, you need that RPC node there. And for a lot of people, it's just something sitting in the background of their wallet software doing stuff, and they're not exactly aware of it. But yeah, you should run full nodes. Everybody needs to run full nodes. Full nodes are vitally important to your own personal security and sovereignty, but most people don't want to do that for reasons that I can't quite understand, because it's really not too difficult.
Right. Just turn on your client, and then usually you should set everything up. Like Parity is very nice. That's what I use. And
I guess that's unfair. If I'm being fair, I've also used things that use RPC nodes. So yeah.
Okay.
But
can you give the information if somebody wants to use that RPC node? Do you have an address or something for everybody?
Yeah, the address is just ethereumclassic.network.
Okay, ethereumclassic.network. Okay.
Yeah, DNS kind of went crazy with top-level domain names. It used to be common.org. Now it's whatever.
All right.
Yeah. And yeah, so next from ETC Cooperative is that Yaz is going to EdCon. That's in the next couple of weeks, early April. I think it starts on April 8th and goes through to maybe the 14th. But he'll be there. Some other ETCers will be there. So if you see him, stop by, say hi. Yaz is also going to be giving a talk called ETC Wanted, Dev or Alive. And, it's going to be all about ETC, the ecosystem. And, he's still putting it together, but it'll be great. And it's a great title. So I'm hoping that attracts people.
Oh, by the way, speaking of ETC Cooperative, I was researching, I wrote an article recently on the Viper smart contract language, and I believe they are funding some work in that area.
Yeah, we're not.
You're not?
ETC Cooperative is not funding any Viper work right now. We would like to in the future, but at the moment we're not.
But were you doing that previously or at some point?
No. I mean, we've never talked about funding. We've tried to talk to other people about other things that may be tangentially related to Viper, but I don't know if we've talked to anybody Viper specifically, but no, I wouldn't say we have any involvement.
All right. Well, then that's a lesson for me about believing everything you read on the internet.
Yeah.
I was researching Viper, and one place said that ETC Cooperative was supporting it. Okay, so I guess that's wrong.
Yeah, some people just make stuff up for clicks on news articles.
All right. So scratch that. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
And then on our own conference, the ETC Summit, we're going to be announcing speakers soon, probably next week.
Okay.
I'll obviously be one of the speakers, and we've got a lot of people both on the ETC and ETH side who are going to be coming, talking about ETC and talking about what they're doing on it. And I think that's great because you're seeing much, much more cooperation between the two. I guess you could call us clans or groups or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, seeing that there's less of an actual clan or group, and it's more, we're just trying to export our ideas, and there's a lot of ideas around cryptocurrencies that really need to be well understood and well explained, and hopefully a philosophy that gets adopted by other people, because there's a substantial amount of freedom in cryptocurrencies, and it's very easy to lose that freedom if we don't stick to our principles. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm happy for that too. That's why it's so great to have people on the Ethereum side coming over, because ETC is considered more idealist, and ETH is more considered more pragmatist. But that's when people say that, they're kind of talking about like in execution of things, and they're not talking about in the larger picture, because the longer you're in this space and the more you're exposed to it, hopefully you start to realize that ETC's idealism, Bitcoin's idealism, and that type of philosophy that several other cryptocurrencies share isn't so much idealism as it is a pragmatic approach to scaling to the entire world, as it is a pragmatic approach to actually keeping the freedoms that cryptocurrency gives you.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So do you know if that's how they would say it, if that's the words that you just used, do you know if that's ETH?
No, they would say ETH is a cool network with a cool community that has a lot of potential here that we can build on as well. And for the most part, it's technically not hard to do.
No, I mean,
yeah.
No, what I was getting at was, so ETH gave a donation to Ethereum Classic.
Well, Ethereum Foundation did. ETH, the network,
Ethereum Foundation gave a donation. So I was just curious what their thinking is, if you've talked with some of them, what they would say is the reason now they've warmed up to ETC more so than before.
Oh, well, Virgil wrote, so it's not just Ethereum Foundation, it's ChainSafe, it's maybe a few other people. Actually, I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to announce names yet, so I won't. But it's several different groups on the Ethereum side, not just Ethereum Foundation, who are coming and talking. But yeah, as far as why, Virgil Griffith wrote a post after that contribution on their reasonings why. A lot of it was tech focused and, community building and kind of trying better to get along because we're all in this together.
Okay.
And yeah, those are the types of things that I think people would say initially, and those are all true. But my own hope is to convince people of what I think are the more important things that just take a long time to really get. I talk to people even nowadays who they're full on Bitcoin maximalists, and they've been in this space since like 2012. And when you've been in that long and you're a Bitcoin maximalist, I'm like, okay, that's great, and let's, I'm happy to talk about what it is about Bitcoin that makes it so great and that gives you these freedoms. But if you can't explain to me, how proof of work gives you these freedoms, or you seem to misunderstand certain very core concepts about it, that to me shows that the belief isn't so much always like people can believe in things for the right reasons and the wrong reasons.
Okay.
And my hope is just to try and get people to believe in things for what I believe are the right reasons. They may not be the right reasons.
So you're saying you want them to understand how these technologies are able to provide the freedoms that they do, kind of a more technical understanding? Is that part of what you're hoping for?
Yeah, partly. And even just the fact that it does provide freedom and censorship resistance. There's people who pick a side and don't understand anything of the side that they've picked on other than that they've picked it. And I think that type of thing is very damaging, because what happens when somebody wants you to explain why they should choose Bitcoin over Ripple or something like that? You don't have a good argument.
Right.
Ripple does more transactions per second than Bitcoin, period. End of statement. Tell me why that's a bad thing. And if you can't say why that's a bad thing in a real reasonable, practical way, then I think that's just not good. And I know I'm supposed to be talking about the ETC summit, and I went off on a tangent.
No, that's good. No, so you're saying so you want people to understand and value freedom and the ideals in addition to understanding the technology. No, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And for somebody who says, "Oh, Ripple is better than Bitcoin," you could just say, "Oh, Ripple's centralized."
Exactly.
But that's not a great explanation, because that's just, who cares? PayPal centralized, Venmo centralized.
Right.
But what you could say is, okay, well, Ripple, the ledger, Ripple, the company, has essentially the unlimited power to freeze or halt any transactions on it. Say Ripple gets instructed by the U.S. government to stop some transactions or to not allow certain people to move their money because they've been told so, then they have no recourse. They have to follow those instructions. Even if Ripple, the company, is this golden gray company, PayPal and Venmo have to do the same exact thing. I would argue that none of them are these golden gray companies, but even if they were, they're still subject to some sort of coercion. Whereas in a proof of work cryptocurrency, you're just not. It's completely technically infeasible to censor transactions on proof of work. And then on top of that, it's just it's structured in such a way that there is no kill switch.
Yes.
Even if everybody, agreed to censor a transaction or a certain person, there's no identity even tied to them, so they can't. And that's not fair to Ripple. There's no real identity on Ripple either. And it's such that if even one block makes it in that has that censored transaction, everybody else has to accept it, or otherwise they're not following the core consensus rules of the chain, and that it'll fork and split up, and then we'll have a censored Bitcoin and a non-censored Bitcoin.
Right.
And so
you want people to value the trustlessness.
Yeah.
Oh,
And there's
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
And then the final thing is that on Ripple, the XRP ledger, you have a handful of nodes. I think there's about 20 right now that will tell you the state of the network. They're probably divided between 5 to 8 different actual entities. And those are all the people in the world that will ever tell you the state of the network whenever you connect to it. You connect to it, say, hey, what's my balance? Here it is. Hey, what transactions did I send? Here they are. you're not going to be able to independently verify that all those things happen because a lot of the data is thrown out. A lot of the data is not kept.
Right.
A lot of the data is only kept by a few small servers. Every other server prunes itself and makes it impossible to generate the full, complete, validated state. And if you can't fully validate something, then you just have to take their word for it. And a simple analogy to that is if somebody gave you a whole pound of gold, but but then they gave you a machine that only lets you verify 1 single ounce of the gold, and then the machine breaks. Can you really trust that pound of gold? You have to trust that pound of gold as much as whoever gave it to you. You know, you may be able to take that pound of gold and snip off whatever ounce you think is the one worth testing, but you're not going to be able to fully validate that gold bar, and you're not going to be able to fully tell whether or not it's 100% gold or whatever has been claimed.
Right.
Same with Ripple.
You don't have that complete assurance.
Yeah, you have some assurance. You have a bit of assurance, but you don't have super good assurance. And that's the thing. Like, how much do you want to trust these things? And for something that's long-term store of value or supposed to be used in highly adversarial situations, where anything with any large amounts of money immediately becomes highly adversarial, whether you perceive that or not. It just doesn't work out. And those are the types of reasons why those are the types of things you want to explain to people, that certain networks are the same as trusting that PayPal is going to give you your money, or that your bank is going to let you access your money when you're overseas. A lot of people end up in those situations where that's just not true. You just won't have access to your money, and it'll be up to you to go to whoever cuts you off and try and convince them. And maybe you can, or maybe you can't.
Right. Hey, speaking of what, in the spirit of going off on a tangent, I have a question for you about what you've just been talking about. So I'm a big fan of giving people freedom, protecting their freedom. And this is a true story. I want your thoughts on this. So I gave an introduction to blockchain talk at the university that I teach at. I'm on the faculty of Sam Houston State University. So I was describing blockchains and how it's trustless and it gives you these freedoms, the public blockchains. And afterwards, I asked one of the professors, what did you think about this technology? And he said, I don't like it. Oh, okay. So wait, why didn't he goes, well, it doesn't agree with my worldview. Okay. What do you mean by that? Well, okay. What you're saying is that these technologies, they ensure and protect everyone's freedom and nobody could mess with anyone else. So what he said was he didn't like that because it didn't make people didn't have to cooperate with each other. It didn't force people to trust each other. So the way that I would describe blockchains as anti-corruption, whereas he would look at it and he'd say, no, blockchains are anti-cooperation. He saw it as a negative thing.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? I'd never heard that, but does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I could see people saying that. And, if you take blockchain or cryptocurrencies in a vacuum and look at it just like that, it does kind of seem like that. But the thing that I would try to explain to people if somebody had said that to me is that cryptocurrencies don't exist in a vacuum. Cryptocurrencies very much exist in the real world with the rest of us and have a million things around them that enforce still those types of things, that enforce the, there's things around cryptocurrencies that are still very much not censorship resistant. There are still things around cryptocurrencies that are still very much, you're not able to just get away with a crime if you commit a crime using a cryptocurrency. You exist in the real world.
Right.
There's data everywhere. Blockchains make excellent databases. They're very queryable. They're very open and transparent. You can see exactly where money is moved to and when. And if you're paying particular attention, you could even see from where, from what IP or from what region.
Right.
And all that is, publicly available open data. And it's kind of like, so it's kind of like if you have a lock on your door, it keeps people out, but it doesn't necessarily keep the government out. If you've committed a crime, they're not going to go, oh, he has a lock on this door,
Right.
and it's a really big lock and a big metal door, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, no, that's not how this works in real life.
Right.
So yeah, it's that type of thing, in that cryptocurrencies aren't trying to give you a complete out and exit from all things. They can't. But what they are trying to give you is they're trying to stay neutral so that there's no undue influence on them one way or the other, which I think is important and allows it to most effectively mesh with the rest of the world. And two, they're just trying to give you new freedoms over your money, freedoms from having your money inflated, freedoms from having your money seized unfairly without due process, that type of thing. Nobody can seize your Bitcoin without due process, period. End of story. Unless they physically steal it from you, in which case they've committed a crime. But with process, with judge and jury and lawyers, that people absolutely can seize your Bitcoin from you. They can say, okay, you've been found guilty of a crime, give us your Bitcoin. They can compel you by court. And then if you refuse, well, you're probably going to serve a longer sentence. It works the same way as somebody robs a bank and buries the money somewhere. So it's the same type of thing. There's very little about real world rules in terms of safety and security and enforcement that cryptocurrencies actually effectively change. Me personally, I wish it would be more, but in actual practical use, it doesn't. So it's that type of thing where cryptocurrencies shouldn't and are ideally designed not to have to reflect any one specific worldview. They're designed very much to be agnostic to any worldview, and so that people who disagree with each other substantially can still interact with each other, same as trading gold. You can disagree with your neighbor, or you're a neighboring country, but if you need to do a large trade and do it over a currency that you both trust because you don't trust each other's currencies, well, you could still do it through gold or other precious metals. And that's what kind of cryptocurrency wants to be, is the digital version of that.
Right. Good. So anyways, getting back to
what do you think about that?
No, what did I think about that? So, well, I don't see an issue with protecting people's freedoms. And I think obviously, if people want to cooperate and trust each other, they can still choose to do that. Blockchain technologies, but it just gives you the protection that there's no big brother that can come and mess things up. So I personally wouldn't ever see that as a negative. I'm also personally libertarian. I'll just throw that out there. And so I see blockchains as kind of making the world, it kind of fulfills the hope of people that are libertarian to have, protect people's freedom, give people autonomy, let them be individuals. So I just see all that as a positive. And I was thinking of, if I was going to troll this same professor, I would go back to him, since he's so worried about cooperation. I would say, well, why don't you give me a copy of your car key and your bank account numbers, right? And then think about, now we're forced to cooperate and trust each other. If you really are that concerned about forcing people to cooperate, I'm not sure he would do that, reveal that information. I think he would he still relies on other technologies, passwords, right? Keys, locks to protect his freedoms, his property. So I don't see why he would see blockchains in a negative way if it's just an extension of keys and locks and passwords, which we already.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example. I think that's exactly it. You don't want to share your bank account statements, but you'll share a cup of coffee, or you'll lend people your lawnmower, that type of thing. Cryptocurrency doesn't change any of that, and largely the limits on cryptocurrency on what people can and can't do is somewhere set around there. Unfortunately, privacy hasn't been fully solved for yet, but
right. But the point is,
yes.
like, people can choose how much they want to cooperate and not cooperate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right, good. Anyway, getting back to original news updates.
Yeah,
you're talking about ETC Summit.
Yep, summit's happening. It's in Vancouver on October 3rd and 4th. We'll be announcing speakers soon. There'll be all sorts of speakers from different walks of life, and it'll be partly developers, partly philosophy, partly ETC's roadmap and where it's been and where it's going. There'll be a lot there, just like there was at the last ETC summit and the one before there. I recommend that anybody who wants to, get an idea of what types of talks would be at an ETC summit, go to etcsummit.com. In the navigation bar, there's a link to the old videos from last year. And yeah, check it out.
Okay, very good. What was your favorite video from last year, if you don't mind me asking? Put you on the spot.
My favorite video? That's hard to choose.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't choose one of my own. So, yeah, actually, my favorite video at the time while I was sitting there was Tom Lee's speech he was giving about why he's so bullish on cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
I thought it was just jam packed full of data, and I like data, and it was just interesting to see these certain metrics that he had laid out. I can't even remember what they are at the time, but I remember liking the presentation a lot. And very few of our presentations are generally about the financial aspect. I think for a lot of it, especially at the ETC co-op, we don't like to focus on the dollar value. We won't ever, talk about price really. But yeah, I like that talk. I think he's very good at giving presentations, maybe.
Tom Lee. Well, so maybe now that we're in a downturn, maybe that would be one people should watch for encouragement.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that, the cryptocurrencies are still running and still working and still giving you all these freedoms. And, the fact that the value is staying kind of stable is kind of nice, because if you want to actually take advantage of the things cryptocurrencies give you, then a flat market is an excellent time to try it out and do it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. This period kind of reminds me of the early 2000s when after the dotcom crash, and people were reminding people, now this doesn't mean that the internet is obsolete. Just be patient. In the long term, it's still going to be world changing. The web's going to continue to evolve, and of course, that's what happened. And so it's just that we just have to wait now for the things to keep maturing.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't think crypto is anywhere near approached .com crash levels yet. I think that's funny too, because the .com bubble was so much bigger,
right,
in quite a lot of ways.
They'll continue to be bigger and bigger. The prices will go higher, and then it'll go down a little bit, and the dips will be bigger, and the highs will be higher. So this will keep happening. So it's not the last downturn, but over the long term, you're right. We think it'll just keep, the long term growth will be upwards.
Well, yeah, long term the curve should flatten out. Crypto is still very much in its infancy, but the bigger markets get, the more efficient they tend to get, and we should see less and less volatility, hopefully, as time goes on.
Right.
Because if it stays like this, it's useless. It's literally cryptocurrencies with super high 10% swings intraday are just absolutely useless for any of the things that we want to use them for. At least as for money, maybe for smart contracts and that type of thing, they're still usable.
Right.
But when it comes to the money use case, which is its biggest use case, yeah, we need a more stable price. Just stay at one price.
In the short term, there'll be peaks and valleys, but in the long term, it should plateau, right? And then once it saturates the world, then it should pretty much impress. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah, then the last thing I wanted to talk about was OpenRPC. That's an ETC Labs core project. Zach and Shane, who are two great developers, are working on it. And that's kind of like, for anybody listening who understands SQL, it's like having a schema for your RPC where it's consumable by an application very easily because it tells the application, this is a Boolean, this is an integer, this is a float. This section of the RPC schema has these methods. When you call it, this is what you can expect back. That type of stuff.
Wait, whoa! Now whoa. Can you elaborate? I'm confused. So, what does RPC stand for?
Oh, RPC. What does RPC stand for?
Remote Procedure Call. That's the only RPC I know. Is that what
you're talking? Yeah. If you're sending like a JSON RPC query, like to your nodes, any EVM based node, that's what you would do is you would say, hey, let me get balance of this address, and it'll shoot you back a hex encoded string.
Okay. Wait. How is this? Wait. So at the beginning of the show, you were talking about ETC cooperatives, right? They have a mode for developers. What did you call that? What was that called?
For what?
No. At the beginning of the show, you were talking about for developers that don't want to set up their own node.
No, that's something else. That's the public RPC node.
That was public RPC, and now this is OpenRPC. So, how is OpenRPC different than public RPC?
The public RPC node is just a regular old RPC node.
Okay.
Every cryptocurrency has people running those types of things, but OpenRPC is different because it's for programmers to use directly to more easily interface with and use RPC stuff.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to explain, but anybody who's used to SQL would know the word schema and kind of what that means. And that's kind of what OpenRPC is for querying your EVM node, or really using it in any RPC-based application, of which there are countless.
Right. So doesn't this remind you didn't Google do something recently where they were making it to make the database accessible with SQL queries?
Oh yeah, BigQuery. It's similar to that. It's different, but it achieves some similar things.
So then the purpose then is to be able to access the blockchain data at a higher level than JSON queries, but to able to use SQL queries.
Not to use SQL queries, but just to be able to do JSON queries without having to go look up how each and every JSON query is structured. Okay. Like without having to know that, I have to send it in this function and address, and it's going to send me back a value.
Okay.
Rather than having to go look through docs to do all that, you're just going to be able to have a programmer's already, defined what returns where for you, and you can just go and quickly understand it without having to look through docs for everything. Or you could even write software that, automatically consumes it.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Very good. All right. So I think we've covered it. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I think we're good. Cryptocurrency isn't going anywhere. Don't believe the FUD.
And Anthony's not going anywhere either. He's still going to be around supporting ETC.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I have a side project that I want to do on ETC, and yeah, I'll probably, do other things more generally, but yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be active in ETC. I'm probably going to go back to how I was active, before I got the full-time job at the ETC co-op, where I go back to just, being a volunteer and helping out wherever I can. which was nice, and I miss it.
Very good. Well, thank you as always, and until next time.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.